you for introducing me. Good morning or afternoon to everybody. I'm glad that I will have opportunity to share some material with you. And taking into consideration that it is the end of the conference, I decided to make our meeting as interactive as possible. I'm presenting for the first time in this program, so I will use two computers, and maybe my video will look strange sometimes, but I hope that these small technical issues will not spoil the general impression. And my presentation today will be divided into three parts. First, I will give some general frame. Then we will shift to art development exercise, which I hope you will enjoy. For that reason, you will need maybe some colored pencils if you have, or markers, and definitely a piece of paper. If you don't have anything colorful to draw, then you can use your pen, blue or black, and then you will change your drawing. Definitely, this reflective drawing requires about an hour, but we will start. I will give instructions, and we discuss a little bit, and then you will complete it by yourself. Because in such distant conditions, it is very difficult to spend much time on this exercise. And the third part of our meeting will be devoted to non-discriminative values in education. I will present several concepts of values, and I hope that we will have discussion on them. So, let me start. Unpredictable world in which we live now was determined as the VUCA world in the US Army War College in 1987. From 2002, this term has been used more often. Abbreviation VUCA reflects characteristics of modern world. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. In such world, values should become the main orientation for professional development, especially in the sphere of education. As my presentation is devoted to non-discriminative values in education and their implementation by means of art development, the focus of what I will tell will be made on a system of education. I'm not sure if everybody here are connected with education in some sense, but system of education is responsible for values and for conscious of population of humanity, not only population of Ukraine, but humanity of this planet Earth. That is why I have the idea that system of education is very powerful tool for implementation of all ideas, and all of us more or less are connected to this system of education. Even if we have already graduated from all programs and universities, adult people need to be involved in adult education during the life course. And I will talk about that anyway today, because the world is changing so quickly that to remain competitive, people in all spheres need to get access to new knowledge and to acquire new skills. Our system of education is currently in the state of rapid changes, which require all educators, irrespective of status and age, new skills. Nobody can be confident in their position. Such situation leads to professional crisis and decreases psychological well-being. Professional crises in conditions of unpredictable VUCA world are often connected to destabilization of professional identity. When professional identity is basic in the system of social identities of a person, professional crisis can lead to changing a professional field for the sake of solving this crisis, what is accompanied by a simultaneous balancing of a system of social identities. One of the reasons for such crisis can be incompatibility of values and norms of a person and organization in which he or she works. In such cases, specialists can leave the professional field for the sake of preserving oneself. Because as you know, it is widely spread and accepted information that when the conflict is on the level of values, it is almost impossible to solve such conflict. And at the level of employee and employer, usually this means that employee goes to some other organization. Professional identity is a type of social identity like gender identity, ethnic identity, and other types of identities. I have developed and proposed a model of social identity, which you see now on the slide. This model consists of meaning content, styles of behavior in which it is revealed, and behavior in concrete situation of interaction. Meaning content includes a system of values and attitudes, while values lie in the center, the most stable component. Attitudes more apt to changes lie in the layer next to the center. Third layer, styles of behavior, is even more apt to changes than the previous ones. The outer layer, behavior in concrete situation of interaction, is the most apt for changes, for example, through trainings. This model visualizes why values are so important. When our values are challenged, it can lead to severe inner conflicts and decrease of psychological well-being, which can lead even to psychiatrical problems, but we will not stop on that now. My cat also wants to participate in our discussion. So, if values are so important, we decided to develop concepts of non-discriminative values in education. There was a project, Pathfinder, which gathered scientists and educators, formal, non-formal, informal, from several countries. We were from Great Britain, Germany, Portugal, Ukraine, and probably there was a professor who originated from Greece, but then he moved to Great Britain. From Ukraine, I participated in this project, and we developed these concepts of values. Definitely, these values existed long before these projects, but our main idea was to make projection to connect these values to a system of education. Now I'm shifting to the second part of our meeting, and then I will explain why. So let me introduce you model of art development in adult education. Actualization, development, and realization of a person's potential often occurs in the process of shifting from one professional sphere to another. I suggest a corresponding model of adult education, art development in adult education. Model of art development in adult education includes actualization, development, and realization of personal potential by means of creativity. I believe that subconscious of an adult person often contains a solution of most everyday life problems and also professional problems. But access to these solutions is blocked by censorship of consciousness and different psychological defenses. Visual metaphor enables to become aware of resources hidden in deep subconscious. Art development techniques, through awareness of feelings, emotions, states, help specialists to see inevitable changes from the point of opening perspectives for development, show resourcefulness of constant learning, in conditions of permanent renewal of skills in order to remain competitive, psychological readiness for constant learning in adult age, despite psychological achievements gained by outdated skills, becomes indispensable condition for successful professional activity. Such readiness for constant learning can be also considered as prophylaxis of psychological traumatization in professional crisis passing. VUCA world, which we have already slightly described in the beginning, suggests such plurality of meanings that visual metaphor can be used as the most effective instrument which enables to connect personal meanings with ambiguous changing meanings of VUCA world without losing identity and compromising values. Orientation on personal values in uncertain VUCA world requires awareness of these values and goals as orientation in behavior, strategy, choice, and actions in each concrete situation. We consider visual metaphor as an inherent component of adult education due to activation of emotional and intellectual spheres in conditions of ambiguous and uncertain meanings. And now I would like to offer you to try how it works. For that purpose, please take a piece of paper and pencils or a pen or whatever you can use for drawing. I'm fond of this exercise, which was developed by Marianna Tkalic in 2006. This exercise, she gave the title to this exercise as Map of Achievements. The aim of this exercise is to recognize personal and professional spheres of self-realization, mark achievements, see new opportunities of overcoming difficulties, define important resources for further development, and determine priorities in self-realization. Now you see instruction how this exercise should be done. It is not just drawing, it is quite a deep, reflexive, psychological exercise. So please, I ask you now to draw a map of your achievements, past, present, and future, in the spheres of career and professional development, personal life, and also you can add those spheres which are important for you. Mark your achievements as destination points where you have already been or want to come. Mark also transitional achievements. Write titles for your achievements. Draw streets and roads which you go reaching your achievements. Will these roads be short or long? Which obstacles will you need to overcome? What help can you receive? And now we will start. Probably I will give you about 5 minutes to start this exercise. And those of you who are willing to share your impression, or maybe you will want to show us your drawing, are very welcome to do that. Then I will show you how this drawing is discussed. But you will complete this drawing by yourself. Usually it requires quite a long time, but when you have instruction and you know directions for reflection, it is not so difficult and you can do it whenever you want. When you draw your achievements, you visualize your subconscious, and this tool can be very powerful for you. While drawing your achievements, I also ask you to keep in mind values which directed your choices while you made your choice, what to do, what behavior to choose, reaching your goals. Is everything clear? I can see from the other computer in the chat. If something is not clear, please write that.
How much time do we have? Shall we start right now?
For 5 minutes, okay. I would ask you to draw this map.
Okay.
At least to start drawing, and then maybe somebody is willing to share their impressions, and then we will move to the next part of our meeting, to non-discriminative values. My intention here was to show how this art development works. Certainly, it is more interesting to do this exercise when people are in the same room and they see each other, and we can see drawings of each other. But
may I ask a question? I've got a question. I've been thinking about the word achievements. So
yes.
If we are drawing a map of achievements,
yes.
Are we only thinking about positive, like achievements when you have achieved something? Are we thinking about the points which were important but were negative, for instance?
Certainly, every negative point can be used as a resource. So if you accepted that negative point and you see it as a resourceful point, you transformed through this point, you changed your style, you made conclusions which were very useful for your further path, then definitely this point should be there. Even you can perceive it as obstacle, but you can also perceive it as a lesson which life gave you.
Okay, thank you.
And while passing such obstacles or such negative points, I think that all of us received some help. And it is also very important for making conclusions. In such negative points, when we are distressed, when we are disillusioned, there are always people who are sincerely willing to help us. People, or maybe our skills, or maybe our personal characteristics. For some people, it is easier to draw only professional sphere and or only private life, and for other people feel it very difficult to separate these two spheres, and they prefer to draw both of them simultaneously. That is up to you. Sometimes people ask for some example, but I can't give example because it is about your imagination, about your way of thinking. Your drawing can look like this one you can see on the slide. This drawing, it is a picture of a Ukrainian artist, Vasilina Kalamika. She's a professional artist. But your drawing can also look somehow as a scheme, as a graph, whatever you like. And I would like to say that drawing in adult age can help a lot to find solutions, because when we draw, we concentrate on the process of drawing, and the focus of thinking about the problem changes from usual to some new. And if we have this skill, we can get access to our subconscious and take solution from there, that very powerful level. But also it is very important to think about security, because in our subconscious we can see resources which are not socially acceptable at all. In psychology, those resources can be called shade. Our shade is very powerful, but we should think about if we are able to manage this shade. And definitely to think about that much is not, it will not be socially approved. So it is such a, we need to keep this balance. But sometimes in some situations which look very difficult, solving these situations require having access to our shade part. Because sometimes only socially acceptable resources will not help us. It depends on what we need to encounter. So you have seen instructions, and I hope that most of you have started this drawing and have already had some insights. And the questions for discussion are the following, and you see them on the slide. Please look at your drawing and try to reply. What do you feel looking at your map? Where the most important achievements are situated? Where can be dangerous places? What resources do you have for achieving your goal? And the most important question for our meeting is what values determined your behavior on your path? If anybody is willing to share some reflections, I will be glad to hear.
I know that I just may share like on my thoughts on the first question. Like, what do you feel when I'm looking at the map? I'm feeling warmth, so I feel warm inside, and I don't know. Maybe I definitely know the resources for achieving the goal. Maybe they lie definitely in me and people around me, like my family. And the special turning point, I would say, I tried to draw that somehow to show the different direction maybe that went was the time when my father died, and that was when I was 20 years old. It was 20 years ago, so that changed the frame of my family. So that's something that I can share right now.
Thank you. And what about values?
Values. So what values do what values determine your behavior on your path? What values? I would say that that's action. I needed maybe to act and to realize, self-realization, I would say. And family, like people around me, to value people around me and to value and appreciation of those people around me. Because they helped and supported, and they were also the resource that helped me to go through those paths.
Thank you a lot for sharing. Maybe somebody else who also wants to share impressions from this exercise.
I can try to show you my pencil sketch. I don't know how that will work. Can you see anything?
Yes, I can see.
Yeah.
Well, I started out with the parrot. Okay, my dad had a pet shop, so I lived in the flat open pet shop with a large, it's not really, it's a macaw, Amazonian bird that had been captured in its youth and taken, I'm sure, against its will to the UK. But this is how I'm summing up where I started from. And he's kind of a good emblem, the parrot, because he was a prisoner, really. He had quite a miserable existence, but still in a supportive arrangement. And so I came from this very working class background, but with a very supportive uneducated family. And from there I went to the Gleaming Spires of Oxford. So this opened the doorways to the rest of the world for me. So this O here, which is my unimaginative way of representing Ohio State University. So I spent 2 years doing my master's there. And cutting the story a bit short, then went to University of California in Riverside. So I've drawn the tower of Riverside and a seismogram to illustrate the earthquakes that would happen from time to time. And you see a little rattle appears because I had 2 children during that phase. And then running out of time, ended up in Hull. So as if you heard my talk yesterday, you'll know why I sketch a fish to represent Hull. And also a house to represent that this is my sort of permanence and my family situation. I've achieved some sort of endpoint perhaps in my personal life, but what's more difficult to show is the ongoing development as a professional.
Thank you a lot for sharing and even for showing your drawing. And would you say something about your values?
My values, I feel this is going to sound very selfish, but just my determination to succeed, I think, is one value. And then, of course, that's helped by family. And then my own, the next generation comes into the picture as well. But I think one of my characteristics, I would say, is if I've decided I'm going to do something, then I do want to do it. What you can't see in here, if Vladimir doesn't mind me saying, since we're mostly women, there's some huge kind of gender implications around all these stories that I haven't put in the picture necessarily, but the geology department was mostly full of men. The geography department at Hull we haven't had a woman head of departments for 25 years. Oxford was certainly a very male dominated. So there's kind of other things that come out in my mind when I look at these pictures, but difficult to put in the pictures maybe.
Yes, I hope that we will have some time for discussing values in education, and what you have just mentioned is worries me a lot too. This I work in the surrounding when which is full of talented women. But traditionally, the highest position are preoccupied by men. And this issue should be somehow changed in Ukraine.
I've said we now have a female vice chancellor for the first time ever. So she's although she's called the vice chancellor, she's the leader of the university, but there are still some middle management barriers to change a bit, I think.
Yes, and this glass ceiling reflects stereotypes, gender stereotypes in society. But hopefully we will have a separate meeting about that. Thank you a lot for sharing with us.
And I do believe that...
Thank you, it's a very good exercise.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I do believe that wise men understand and realize that ladies should be cherished, because they rule. Actually, it's not us. I mean, males that hold those positions and reign. Well, everything depends on ladies, and those people, those men who are real men, they are to realize that. I would like to show you my picture, if you don't mind, because it's a tricky question. It's a tricky task, you see. You gave us because you asked us to write, to draw something. And what about the people lacking imagination and being somewhat strict in their mind and their brain, and specifically males? I was embarrassed with this task, you know, because we still have only 5 to 10 minutes in order to draw something, and I just thought it is inappropriate for me just to write. I've got a lot of things to show, and but I have no time to draw it. So I decided to present it like this. It's a bunch of colorful balloons, you know, and I just treat. I do believe that we are to treat our life like a gift, and everything presented in this life is considered to be a gift as well. And you know, all those balloons just symbolize that everything is not only gifted, it is given to us, and it is to be cherished and treated with care, because they are rather tangible. It is impossible just to hold those balloons without any care. We just to take care of them, and everything will be okay. And here I've mentioned all the spheres that are necessary and important for me. That is the first family that was given to me, that is my parents. Then those steps I made in my career, that is school education, university education, some career work, and my family. And we have some spare balloons, which are also symbolizing some future achievements. And what is more important, and it's my achievement in this life, that we are to realize that everything is really tangible. It may disappear somehow, and at the same time, it is necessary to realize that sometimes it is better to let it go, some of those balloons, rather than to stick to this balloon and to wait something to happen. Still, I don't know whether this has right to and has some substantiation and motivational aspect, but this is my vision. So thank you.
Thank you a lot for sharing your
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. And what about this characteristic features supporting me in my life? The two features I just take care of are trust and support. But it's not only I have to trust. I have to do everything in order to be trusted in return. And the second one is support, but not only to take, but to give. Well, actually, in my personal life, taking is also very important, because I want to be appreciated, because I'm cancer, you know, and it's necessary just to realize that you are needed and you are just a son for someone. But at the same time, a great importance is also just to give, because it's the value of life, and it is necessary to do that in order to live a happy life. Thank you.
I wish there were more men on the top position in higher education like you.
Thank you for appreciation. Thank you.
Because personally, I had last year I had terrible problems with men on the highest position, and I continue having them.
Irina, in case you have any problems, just call me and everything will be settled.
NGOs in Ukraine can do a lot. Thank you. And maybe somebody else want to share?
Yes, I understand that today we have a great team with sometimes really the same values, because as Natasha, I also have such a value, self-development or self-realization, and this value comes with me always, and always is with me such a value. What about, and of course, balloons, and I have clouds. So we can speak about sky. And yes, and you know, thanks for such great task, because just now I really realized which issues I have in not my life, but maybe in my development as well. And as Vladimir said, yes, my base is my family. Is my family, is my husband, my daughter, and my cat. And
Yes,
of course, my mom and dad. My mom and dad, and my hobbies, because without hobbies, maybe it will be difficult. And what about professional achievements? You know, just now, not just now, but I think sometimes I have problems with setting goals, especially about their clarification, and sometimes goals not so right, or better to say it, they sometimes wrong. But I'll work I'll work with this. And helping, you know, I always say that the other base for me to work and to develop is my students always, because my students, they push me to develop and to be interesting for them and to be supportive also for them. And of course, during the pandemic lockdown, it was Coursera, because on Coursera, I have found some really interesting courses about self-development as well. So, and about leadership. And, you know, such workshops as we have today, it's also the brick of our professional achievements. So.
yes, thanks to the organizer of this wonderful conference. I really appreciate this conference and the organizational talent and potential. Thank you for sharing with us. Maybe somebody else wants to share? We have some time, not much, for discussing maybe one concept of values. And I will start from I did something wrong.
Would you like to make it full screen, a slideshow? And okay.
I think we will have time for discussing only one value. That is why I have chosen my favorite value out of all those non-discriminative values, which I have mentioned in the beginning of our meeting. So, and my favorite value out of all of them is equity, fairness, and development. All members of the society should have fair access to resources and opportunities for development. In education, outcomes can only be fair if different starting points and abstractions are recognized and accommodated. We define fairness in education to mean striving for equal outcomes and taking it into account individuals' different starting points and barriers. Equity and fairness are often used without clear definition. In societies, they may be used about the distribution of resources, power, or the administration of legal justice. Being fair may not mean treating everyone equally. In the distribution of resources or power, fairness may be achieved by taking into account an individual's needs, difficulties, efforts, and skills. For decision to be recognized as fair, the criteria that dictates what is fair needs to be understood and accepted. Education will only be inclusive if it effectively meets the different needs of all in society and the learning group. This requires educators to understand barriers that obstruct learning opportunities for some learners. Citizenship education allows people from different backgrounds to contribute to development of themselves, their communities, and wider society. Citizenship education creates a greater pool of well-educated people and contributes to national economic success. In this context, I use the term of citizenship education in wider sense, not only the way it is used in Ukraine. In my opinion, and not only in my opinion, education prepares citizens. So in wider sense, all education is citizenship education. And when I say inclusive citizenship education, I use this term inclusive also in a little bit different sense than it is used in Ukraine. Inclusive citizenship education internationally means inclusion of different groups, sometimes disadvantaged groups, not only with some health problems, but also socially excluded groups like Roma, or in some countries those are immigrants. So that is what I mean. Citizenship learning must give learners understanding that the laws of a society need to be fair and transparent and applied consistently without prejudice or favor either to the weak or the powerful. Learners should discuss how laws which seem unfair might be changed. Exploring fairness, equality, and equity involves discussing different core values about fairness. For example, is it fair that people should get a higher reward than others if they work harder? This would measure of effort to define what is fair. Should greater reward go to those with greater skills or experience? Should extra resources go to those with most need, such as people with disabilities or illnesses? Understanding what is accepted as fair in the distribution of resources, wealth, wages, power, education, and social status are all topics that are important to discuss in citizenship education. Equality of respect, rights, and access does not mean treating everyone exactly the same. It requires individuals, communities, societies, service providers, and the state to recognize differences in the distribution of resources. Such differences may include gender, age, socio-economic status, disabilities, ethnicities, language, religious beliefs, and much more. Promoting entitlement to universal human rights, equality, fair treatment, and demonstrating equal respect for all people in society are core principles of citizenship education. Teaching content and methods should demonstrate these principles in the ways that we treat all learners and in ensuring that learners understand fairness is not a simple concept. It must be examined, discussed, and worked for. Working to support the development of all individuals, communities, and societies is everybody's concern, and citizenship education should teach how we can contribute. And it is not only the responsibility for the government, but rather each of us should participate in it. from the side of education, or from the side of giving service of education, and also from the side of those who are learners. Now I would like to hear your opinion about this value. We don't have much time, but still.
We still have some time devoted to the break. I'm so sorry for interrupting you. So still, in case we have some heated debates, we'll continue working till the evening. Everything is okay. So sorry for interrupting you. Go on, please.
So is somebody willing to share opinion? This value, describe this value internationally for all contexts, but definitely every country has peculiarities.
Well, may I express my idea? Well, you know, sure. Equity is considered to be universal, and it is a characteristic feature of every society in different countries, but every society in the different country treats it differently because they have some variations in understanding this phenomenon. As a philologist, I can admit that we have the direct relation of equity and fairness in communication in terms of intercultural communication and communication in general, when we have the notion of political correctness, when we have the language discrimination of different people belonging to different groups which are considered to be different from other people, the bulk of people, when we have ageism, sexism, then ethnocentrism, and so on and so forth. And we have the idea of tolerance and the tolerant language when we use those politically correct language units in order to name something correctly and not to do some harm to people being different. And equity and fairness are considered to be fundamental issues in this societal development, because we consist of, the society itself consists of people, and it doesn't matter whether they are of different kinds, of different form, of different ideas, expressing them, expressed, and we just are considered to be equal. In case we have the matter of some shift from ethnocentrism to ecocentrism, when a human being is equal to all the elements of the ecosystem, then speaking about the society as a system, every member of the society is considered to be equal. And we should talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to share opinion?
No ideas, ladies?
If not, I will move to the next value. We have some time, I think several minutes. So another favorite value is identities. And the concept of this value was proposed by me. As you have already seen in the beginning of the presentation, it corresponds to the model of social identity which I developed. But certainly we discussed this concept in a group of researchers from different countries. So this value identities is described the following way. All of us have multiple identities that come from our feelings of belonging to a variety of social groups: ethnic, religious, gender, professional, national, civic, etc. Each particular and concrete situation we find ourselves in makes particular identities more salient than others. Citizenship education is an important tool in forming our identity as a citizen. We belong to civic society by accepting the following civic values, attitudes, and behavior that are accepted as part of our civic society. Cultural, ethnic, linguistic, and other identities normally coexist with our civic identities, and in democratic, diverse societies and states, there are mechanisms to accommodate a range of different identities, as long as these values do not conflict basic human rights. Stable citizenship identity can constitute an important element in maintaining the security of the state. Media, traditional and electronic, can play an important role in both the construction and the undermining of such a citizenship identity. Each person's range of identities coexist in the individual, and different social and community contexts can make different elements more or less important. Balancing and balance and stability in this system can be challenged by social interaction. Each identity consists of a particular set of values, attitudes, and behavior. Ethnic and gender identities may be fundamental to an individual, though they might not become salient until ethnic and gender identity rights are violated. Negative challenges to basic identities can sometimes lead to radicalization and extremism. The protection of vulnerable groups' rights around a range of identities is a common good in democratic and harmonious societies. Stereotyping of minorities by organizations, society, community, or the media significantly undermines social cohesion and harmony, challenges the rule of law, and is inequitable. Citizenship education should include ways to recognize and challenge stereotyping of all different identities to counter such challenges to democratic citizenship education. So I would like to listen your opinion about this value. In Ukraine, it has definite peculiarities, different from peculiarities in Europe or in other parts of the world.
Maybe just one comment about identity. Identities are very important, and definitely it's necessary to realize that we may have multiple identities in terms of like sustainable development. I don't know whether you heard of, but there is a recent work, recent book like from 2020, and the title is the Eco-Cultural Identity. It was, the author is Tima Milstein. It was published in US, yes, and there are other authors there, but there they are talking about eco-cultural identity, like the way people are constructing their identity and helping the environment. So that's something that we have to understand, yeah. That's the term they are using. If you come across their works, you may just have a look at that. So, but I think that we have to develop that. We may call that sustainable identity or eco-cultural identity, whatever identity, eco-identity, for instance. But in terms of like overall sustainability framework, that type of identity has to be developed, and it can be developed in various ways, by means of social media, by means of research and participation at conferences, by means of sorting out garbage and I know using art for developing and making that eco-cultural or eco-identity salient. Yeah, so that's what is important. Thank you. That was the comment.
Thank you a lot.